Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1289B, and today's date is May 25th, 2017, and the title of the episode is, It Is All Unraveling, and this is why everyone should be nervous. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we can see, Obamacare, it is continually... well, it's self-destructing, and it looks like things are just getting worse and worse for the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City. Well, they just joined the growing ranks of insurers, and they decided that, listen, we're losing a lot of money. The company's lost about $100 million since it joined the exchanges back in 2014. And it says that it can't survive. It's completely out of control. And we see right now, this is in Missouri, and there are going to be 25 counties where they have zero Obamacare insurer options in 25 counties in this state. And Trump actually is right. And we knew this going back in time that Obamacare was going to implode. We saw the exchanges, they were going belly up. Billions and billions of dollars were being lost. Insurers were dropping out. People were saying that they were too expensive, the policies. The deductibles were way too high. And we can see right now that the whole thing is completely falling apart, and it is getting worse and worse as time goes on. Now we can see that everything that the deep state has been trying to do against Trump and those individuals within the administration who are trying to stop everything that they've been doing for the last 100 or so, 200 years, it looks like everything is starting to unravel and they're getting caught up in their lies. And we need to remember that the corporate media, this is the mouthpiece of the deep state. And it sounds like they're starting to threaten Trump because, first it was Comey's father who says, I'd be scared if I were you. Then it was a friend of Comey who said, I'd be scared if I were you. And we also had an anonymous person who said, I'd be scared if I were you. That to me seems like it is a threat to the president. But what we see happening right now is they are getting caught up in all different lies, not just the Russian collusion. There's no evidence whatsoever about the Russian collusion, but we see other things start to happen. Now, what happens with lies is that you can lie for so long, and once they start to unravel, they unravel very, very quickly because you can't cover it up with another lie because people figure that out and it all starts to fall apart. And I see this happening right now. It's completely unraveling because Comey came out and they had this bombshell news report from the Washington Post, which doesn't really tell the truth. And they revealed that former FBI Director James Comey's decision to unilaterally announce the closure of the investigation into whether Hillary Clinton intentionally mishandled classified information was inspired by a secret, dubious Russian document the FBI officials now believe was a bad intelligence call. So, let me get this straight. They had this Russian document. They looked at it, and the document said, hey, listen, don't investigate Clinton. And the FBI went along with this. Does it sound like they're trying to cover up something or cover their tracks? Are they trying to say the Russians made me do it? That's what it sounds like to me. So let's go a little bit further here. The secret document, which purported to be a piece of Russian intelligence, claimed that former Attorney General Loretta Lynch had privately assured someone in the Clinton campaign that the investigation into Clinton's handling of classified information would go nowhere. A conversation that, if made public, would cast doubt on the inquiry's integrity. Former officials have said that the document played a significant role in the July decision by the FBI Director James Comey to announce on his own, without the Justice Department, that the investigation was over. So they didn't do any further investigation. They didn't check out this document. They just went with it, and they are now saying that Russia made us stop investigating. Isn't this the FBI? Isn't this what they're supposed to do? Isn't the Justice Department supposed to direct them? Aren't they supposed to gather the evidence, the information, hand it off to the Justice Department? They make a decision on what they're supposed to do. So what we're seeing right now is they're getting caught up in all these different lies. It's all unraveling, and they don't know what to do about it. Now, the document in question is an email allegedly written by Debbie Wasserman. Now, she was the chairwoman of the DNC, and she had to step down. And she sent this to Leonard Bernardo, who is an official with the George Soros organization Open Society Foundation. Now, according to the document, Wasserman Schultz claimed that Lynch had assured senior Clinton campaign staffers Amanda Renteria that the investigation would go nowhere. So, supporters of Comey, they claim that the document gave him good reason to take the microphone in July without consulting with Lynch to announce the close of the Clinton probe in great detail. And it looks like they're just trying to cover up everything that they have done. And we could see there's also a video of Wasserman Schultz where she's basically threatening a Capitol police officer to give back the equipment, and the Capitol police officer saying that we might need this for evidence. This whole thing is breaking down right in front of their eyes, and they don't know what to do about it. They're just blaming it, pointing fingers and blaming anyone. And this should make everyone nervous, because they're not just going to stand by and they're not all going to take the fall for this. They will try to do something, maybe an event, to cover up what is happening. Think about 9/11, when all of a sudden the Pentagon was announcing that they misplaced $9-10 trillion, and then all of a sudden that just disappeared. It was the day before 9/11. I mean, 9/11, there were many agendas. That was one of them. You know, when the plane or the missile or whatever it was hit the Pentagon, destroyed the exact location where all the research and paperwork was being done. I mean, how much more obvious can you be at this point? So again, they are going to do something, and this should make everyone nervous at this point, to cover up. As this thing continually unravels, they're going to try to cover up all this, because it's not just the Clintons. This runs deep. And then what will happen is they will discover other things, and it will get worse and worse, and more information will come out, and it's going to be a complete disaster. Now, Trump has been trying to push his travel ban for months now, and it looks like the Fourth Circuit Court, well, they shot it down once again. And at this point, I think he needs to drop it. I think it's gone far enough. And we can see that maybe we need to concentrate on vetting individuals that are coming into the country, adding the border guards along the border. And I understand why he's pushing for the wall. In the beginning, I thought, well, maybe we'll have surveillance equipment, we'll have a lot of border guards, but the wall is going to be needed for the collapse. And people say, well, why would we need that? Well, think about this. When we have the economic collapse, the government's going to shrink. There's going to be no money, nothing to pay for. It's going to be chaos. The border guards and a lot of employees that work for the government, guess what? Most likely, they're not going to be around. They're not going to be doing their jobs. A lot of people are going to be laying off. There'll be few border guards at that point in time. So the only thing that would keep individuals out of the country would be the wall. So we have to think of it in those terms. And I think this is the reason why he's pushing it so hard right now. Now, the news organization WND, they were reporting on the Seth Rich murder. And they tweeted it out, titled "Bombshell, Donna Brazile warned of private eye of Seth Rich murder." And they did this on Twitter. And as soon as they put this up there, Twitter, well, they decided that we're going to send the news organization a message saying that please delete the tweet. And it looks like WND refused to delete the tweet because they're saying, what is the problem? We're looking at your rules, your terms of service, and I don't see where this meets your terms of service. So Twitter decided to freeze the account. Did they violate any of their terms of service? They cannot find it. So very interesting. They don't want this information getting out there. They don't want it being reported on. And at every turn, they're trying to stop what is happening right now. Now, we see that there was an intel leak when this bomb went off in Manchester. And out here in the United States, information was leaked. It was in the corporate media. And it looks like the UK is very upset about this. Because, why were you leaking all this information? Trump is out there, and he's actually angry about this. And, of course, he's been dealing with leaks within the White House. Well, it looks like they had enough. Jeff Sessions right now, and this was what James Comey was supposed to do, he is now going after the leakers. He has a major investigation. It's already underway. It's looking at all different areas. It's looking at the news media. It's looking at the U.S. intelligence departments. It's looking at the staffers. It's looking at everyone. And he says, we are going to find the leakers. He says this cannot be tolerated. We will make every effort to put an end to it. These are the individuals that are breaking the law right now, especially those individuals that unmasked individuals when they were spying on like Flynn, spying on Trump, spying on many Americans, government officials, judges. This is where the focus should be, finding these individuals. Now, it looks like the U.S. is sailing warships, the USS Dewey, a guided missile destroyer, into the South China Sea, and it's reportedly sailed within 12 nautical miles of the Spratly Islands in the South China Sea. Now, once again, China is working with many countries in this area. Trump is saying that the freedom of navigation, this is coming to an end. And what I see happening now in the Pentagon, within the White House, there's Trump and his people, and then we have different factions. Even within the Pentagon, there are different factions where they are not working with the White House. They're on their own doing whatever they want, and they're calling the shots. And we can see this in Syria. We can see it out in the South China Sea. We can see it in many areas. And this is why you see things happening like this, because the deep state, they are pushing their agenda to get something started. Now, we see there was another raid in Yemen, and the corporate media was out there, and they're reporting that, yes, the raid was successful. It killed 7 al-Qaeda militants in Yemen, and we need to remember how this works. If the deep state wants to have regime change in the country, they use al-Qaeda. This is their paid mercenary force, plus the Islamic State and other terrorist groups, to remove and get into the country to remove the government. Once the government is then removed and a puppet government is put into place, the authorization for war against al-Qaeda, and pretty much that's it, because we don't have one for the Islamic State. They just say, oh, the Islamic State is part of this authorization. But once the puppet government is in place, all those people in that country, they are then designated as al-Qaeda, because this allows them to use drones on these individuals. So in Yemen, the Houthis and these people fighting against the puppet government, this is al-Qaeda. Now, are they really al-Qaeda? No, they are civilians. And we can see Reprieve, they're out there saying, no, the United States went in there and they killed everyday people, civilians. They were not al-Qaeda. So we can see what is happening here. The deep state is getting caught, and now the truth is coming out in this area. We see that Trump is out, and he's meeting with NATO, and he's being kind of tough with them, and he's looking at how much they're paying in. He says 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they're supposed to be paying for their defense, and many of these nations owe massive amounts of money from the past years, and they're not paying those past years. We should recognize with these chronic underpayments and growing threats, even 2% of GDP is insufficient to close gaps in modernizing. Now, think about what he's doing right now. He's using the word threats just like the deep state does. Why is he using it? To get these nations to pay. He knows there's no threat from Russia. He met with Sergei Lavrov. He's talking with them, working with them, with the One Belt, One Road system. He's working with China. There is no threat there, but he's using it to get these countries to ante up because our country's broke. We need the currency. And what's very interesting is that the NATO commanders, they threw in the words that, Russia's a threat. But when Trump met with the EU officials in the European Union, the senior officials at the European Union, well, they failed to reach a united stance on Russia, where the EU is saying that they're a threat and Trump is saying they're not a threat. So we can see there's many things happening all at once. Now, NATO is going to be joining the U.S.-led coalition operation in Syria and Iraq, and they're going to be training the paid mercenary army. And this tells us that NATO is involved, that the deep state is involved. We have other coalition forces involved, building up paid mercenary troops. And it looks like what they're about to do, and most of the time, these things occur during the last week of July going into August. We'll have to see if it happens this year, because this is when Congress leaves and the deep state has full control of everything that's going on. Now, Obama, he used to go out there and push the agenda, and we always saw things happen during this period of time. The sarin gas attack in 2013, August. The Islamic State, August. And the bombing, August. Every single time we saw it happen during this period. Now, Trump is in office. We'll have to see how this plays out, but it looks like they're planning some type of invasion coming into Syria, and it looks like what they're going to do is they're going to try to separate Syria with these forces and try to create a Kurdish area, and I believe that's what they're trying to do. Now, out in Libya, it looks like the deep state is pushing their agenda there because we see right now that Russia has condemned the recent spike of violence in Libya, and this is during the peace talks, because, again, they want their UN-backed government in there. Now, Trump was out there saying, let Libya decide what they want to do. The United States should not be involved with them. But we can see that the deep state, they have the terrorist groups, they bomb certain areas, they can cause havoc, and they do it for a purpose. Now, very interestingly, U.S. Senators Jeff Flake and Tim Kaine, they introduced a bill on Thursday to update the authorization of the use of military force for actions against terror groups, including the Islamic State. Now, the old one that they were using was back in 2001, and now it's coming up for renewal, and it includes the Islamic State and pretty much all terror groups. And they're trying to get this passed. Other provisions would give Congress more oversight of the president's powers, including the ability to determine what groups can be considered associated with the three named groups and whether military action can be expanded beyond Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. So we can see right now war is still on the table, and it looks like they want to take the powers away from Trump and basically bring it into Congress. Now, the question is why? Because a lot of those individuals in Congress, well, they're still working for the deep state. And it looks like they want to make decisions on what is going to happen. And we can see that the deep state right now, everything that they've done is unraveling. And they're not just going to sit back and say, okay, let all this happen. We don't care. Put us in jail. No. They are going to push their agenda. And I believe in the next couple of months, we're going to see some crazy things happen. We're probably going to see a lot of events occur during this period because they're going to do more and more of these things to cover up everything they've been doing. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.